Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery and those listening at home. Could you please be seated while Councillor Betts delivers the blessing? Thank you.
Almighty God, we give you thanks that we can be together here tonight as a council to consider the business that's before us. We pray, Father, give us wisdom, give us insight, and may we make decisions that serve the well-being of our city and of its residents. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. Councillor Dewhurst, would you like to do the acknowledgement of country this evening?
Yes, please. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Good evening. We stand on the cherished ancestral lands of the Whadjuk people, original stewards and protectors of this splendid country whose wisdom has nurtured its vibrant life. Alongside them, we honour the diverse communities, European, Asian and beyond, who have also cared for these lands, each contributing to the thriving and inclusive nation we celebrate today. Pay tribute to the brave men and women who have fought for this country, safeguarding the values of freedom and fair play that define our shared and rich history. Those Australians whom we have promised not to forget so they can sleep in peace are also in our thoughts today. Together, let's respect and acknowledge each individual's part in fostering this land's beauty and strength. United, we commit to caring for this country for the sake of our children and their children after them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. It is now 7 p.m. and I declare the meeting open. Just acknowledge former Mayor Mrs Owen Searle is in the gallery. Welcome, Mrs Searle. Disclaimer, members of the public are cautioned against taking any action on council decisions on items in which they may have an interest until such time as they've seen a copy of the minutes of the meeting or have been advised in writing by the city staff. Record of attendance, Councillor Zhang has a leave of absence. Deputy Mayor Hort, Councillor Baines and Councillor McDonald are all apologies, and Councillor Adams is calling in online. I think that counts for everyone. Other than that, we're all here. Announcements by the presiding member. I just let council know that today I attended the funeral service for Mrs Dorothy Burke. It was a really lovely service and it was really well attended, and I just want to acknowledge that she will be sadly missed in the community as she did play a big role with a lot of volunteering roles. So so happy to have attended that on behalf of council today. Thank you. Just acknowledge to everyone here that we opened on a brighter night. We opened the All Abilities Playground today at Sutherland's Park, so that was great to see a lot of families there already using the park as well, so that looks like they'll be well attended going forward. And I'll just acknowledge Councillor Williamson wearing orange today, representing the 16 days in WA, which is to ending domestic violence, and this year the motto or the saying is stopping family and domestic violence, play your part. I'm pleased to say that the city actively supports women's refuge centres, as well as we give community grants to community groups that will hold events and functions to help eliminate domestic violence. Thank you. Reports of delegates, are there any? No? Thank you. Questions time for the public. Questions? The first question is from Mr Dennis Foote from Gosnells. Could you come forward, please? Thank you.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dennis Svet from Gosnells. I got two questions tonight in regards to the development at lot 1452 Bird Street in Gosnells. My first question is, can the council please explain how and the reasons a dispensation from a council standard drainage drawing ES41, which requires a 1.5 meter setback from a boundary to the drainage pits, was provided to the developer without any consultation and/or approval from an adjoining property owner?
Thank you, Mr Foot. I'll ask the Director for Planning to answer your question. Thank you. Mr Terrelink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The engineering standards for technical installation of on-site drainage are not an issue covered by planning approval or not an issue which is subject to conferral with adjoining neighbours. They're merely structures that need to comply with technical requirements.
Next question, please.
From my email correspondence to the council on the 18th, 20th and 23rd of November, which, by the way, I'm still waiting for a written response from the council. The council is now aware of how the dispensation negatively affects my property. Is the council still going ahead to provide the developer approval and connection to the city's stormwater system? And as a result, ignore any of my concerns, please?
I'll ask our Director Terrelink to respond to that question as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just by way of background, there has been some emails received, but the City did send an interim reply on the 21st of November indicating that a full response was under investigation. And there was also separately a phone call, I believe, with Mr Foot and one of our subdivisional engineers as a follow-up to that. In addition, we've had two of our subdivision engineers out on site in the last couple of days, and we're about 90% of the way through preparing a technical response to Mr Foot. In conclusion, if the standards of the installation are affirmed as satisfactory, it does not mean that we are ignoring your concerns. It simply means that we're giving them due consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next question is from Tracy O'Neill of Kenwick. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How many of the properties in the Mooksea Precinct 1 have been or are currently being investigated by the City for repeated breaches of their development application conditions?
I'll ask Director Bradbrook to respond to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd have to take that on notice and get back to Mrs O'Neill about that. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Next question.
And to follow up, how many of those are operating under temporary development approvals?
Well, yeah, we'll take that on notice as well.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Mr Walker, would you like to come forward and ask your questions? Mr Walker's from Kenwick. Thank you.
My first question is, are permits required for candidates to have election signs on the city's property?
Thank you. If you would like to respond to that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, they are.
Are entrepreneurs or any other occupational group exempt from the city's requirements regarding election signage?
Thank you, Mr Bradbrook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, they're not.
Did the city receive applications from any candidates to have signs on the city's property on election day?
Thank you. I think this is again for Mr Bradbrook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, we didn't.
Did some candidates have sign on city property without permits on election day?
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, they did.
Thank you.
Is a successful candidate who had signs on city property without a permit on election day considered to have sufficient integrity to make the declaration required of councillors?
Jumped a question there, but I guess it's a matter of opinion, but if you've got one, I guess that's up to personal opinion on that one, Mr Walker. Your next question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What penalty are candidates who are infringed for having election signs on city property on election day without a permit exposed to?
Brooke?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe the penalty is $150 infringement for a sign on property without approval.
What is the Mayor's view of the integrity of councillors who had election signs on city property without a permit on election day?
Was it me that had the sign on the property, Mr Walker?
I didn't see a sign.
I don't think it was me.
But you did see signs.
I like to think I didn't put them on city property without permission. It's a difficult time to know where people are putting signs out, so I guess, in all honesty, people should arrange for permits if they're going to be putting things on city property.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Walker. Public statements? On to public statements, and I have one here from Mr Graham Capstick from Black Boy Court in Thornley. Thank you, Mr Capstick.
Madam Mayor, councillors, my name is Graham Capstick and I am a homeowner and long-time resident of Black Boy Court. I stand before you today to put forward the following items to council for consideration in relation to the potential name change of our street, Black Boy Court. These items are not mine alone, but a collective representation of items of concern from residents of Black Boy Court. Firstly, out of the 25 plus years that the street sign has been in existence, and considering that it has been in plain view as part of a school thoroughfare where numerous parents and children of various cultural backgrounds have passed by it, either in cars or on foot, not once has any complaint been made against the name of our street in the 25 years. This in itself surely must support the fact that a majority of people and cultures that make up the local demographic area surrounding Black Boy Court do not in any way find it racially vilifying, derogatory or offensive. Secondly, the name itself, being of one word, is not a description of a coloured child, but simply a common botanical name. It is not Black Boy, which would be racially descriptive in nature, but rather in the same category of naming such as Whiteman or Blackman, common surnames. Again, such names are one word and contain no separation to infer a different meaning. Thirdly, I ask Council to give thought to the division within the street that changing the name may potentially cause. Up until this proposed name change, the street has always been one of harmony and good relations between neighbours. This change, which has been proposed, has already caused a certain level of animosity and strong feelings from neighbours, which I personally feel is unnecessary and may further damage what has always been a very warm, friendly and multicultural street to live in. I ask you all, is such a change worth jeopardising that? And I think not. Finally, I thank Council for allowing me the opportunity to express my concerns and those of my fellow neighbours. And I ask that whatever decision you deem necessary, it is one which best reflects the interests and concerns of all residents and ratepayers of Black Boy Court. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Chapstick. I now call forward Kate Jones from Thornley as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to make a public statement. My name is Kate Jones and I am Grace Kenny's grandmother. I live with Grace and my family at their home at 6 Black Boy Court, Thornley. I fully support Grace's efforts to change the name of the street she lives on. In 2021, 2.7% of the city's population was of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander origin, compared to 2% in Greater Perth. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders that are a minority in the city deserve the same respect we pay to other minorities by adapting offensive and outdated language. The council report provides councillors with a definition of black boy, referring to the informal name for Xanthorrhoea plants. It fails to point out the colloquial meaning being an Aboriginal boy or servant. Throughout history, the term has been used to address black men as boy in a purely pejorative and emasculating manner. Paragraph 126 of Landgate's extract from Policies and Standards for Geographical Naming in WA refers to the perception of discriminatory or derogatory may change through time and from place to place. Grace is growing up in a time of change. The rights of minority groups are becoming, as they should, increasingly asserted. She is advocating on behalf of an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander minority in the city of Gosnells to dispense with a discriminatory and derogatory street name. It is bitterly disappointing to me that the officer's report misses the opportunity for council to take a position on renaming the street. Rather, it recommends referring the matter off to a committee that is not appointed to specifically represent the interests of Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders in the city of Gosnells. It is left to a courageous 12-year-old girl to speak up and advocate on their behalf. Against what the officer's report refers to as a majority of opposition, Grace is determined to continue the fight to continue to speak for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people in Gosnells. I couldn't be more proud of her and support her wholeheartedly in her quest to do what is right. Thank you very much.
Mrs Jones, can I now call forward Grace Kenny from Thornley?
Hi, my name is Grace Kenny, and first of all I'd like to thank all of you for the work you have done to consider my petition. At school we've been taught about the history of this country, and I feel strongly empathetic when I think about all the Aboriginal Australians that have suffered. I try to imagine how it would feel to be an Aboriginal person and to remember how they have been treated through history. I cannot change the past, but I can try and change the future. If we can work together to do what we can, why wouldn't we? I have spoken with an Aboriginal friend, and he told me that he finds our street name very offensive, and he said I was doing the right thing. I feel very proud of what I have achieved lately, and I would love it if our street name was changed from Black Boy Court to Grass Tree Court.
Thank you, Ms Kenny. Now move on to that's the end of public public statement time. Now we move on to the confirmation of the minutes. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Ashwin to move that. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Islam. And councillors, are there any questions on the minutes? Are we? Okay, yes, you're correct. Yes, thank you. Both minutes we're moving. So can councillors please raise their hand to vote on this item? Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. Receiving of petitions and presentations, are there any? No, thank you. Applications for leave of absence? None, thank you. No questions of which due notice has been brought forward. We move on to the first item, which is item 12.1, the Community Citizen of the Year Awards Selection Panel meeting, the 13th of November. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Dewhurst to move that. Councillor Williamson to second that. Is there any questions or debate on this item, councillors? No? If you could please raise your hands to cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to 13.2.1, the street renaming of Black Boy Court, Thornley. Can I get a mover for this, please? Mover, councillors. Councillor Williamson to move that. Councillor Adams to second that. Is there any debate on this item, councillors? Councillor Betts? No, they don't.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the sentiment that Grace expressed, but I think we need to recognise that Black Boy is the name that's given to many places. If you just Google Black Boy, and there's a whole lot of locations in Beechborough, in Morley. There's various Black Boy Kennels, Black Boy Tree, Black Boy Hill. If we think that simply because it's Black Boy that somehow that is racist, then it must be equally racist as, I think Graham was the speaker, said Whiteman Park must be equally racist, and therefore we should get rid of that. But I think we really just need to take a deep breath and think about what's actually going on here. There are various words which you can use in a derogatory way, that certainly is true, but I think we shouldn't automatically assume that all Aboriginal people think the same way. One of Grace's friends raised that with her, that's fine. As we saw with the referendum on The Voice, we had Senator Jacinta Price and Warren Mundine, Aboriginal people, being the main spokespeople against it, indicating that not everybody, just because you're Aboriginal doesn't mean you think exactly the same. In the same way as not all British background or Aussie background or whatever background people think exactly the same way. And I don't actually support the motion that the staff have put forward, because I believe we should simply retain the name Black Boy. There's no real need for change. And as there's a little humour to the situation, we're not going to ask Aldi to stop selling sauerkraut. Now, I'm German by birth. When I was at school, I often got called a kraut, because that's a derogatory term for a German. And if you're a sauerkraut, well, you're a grumpy German. So that was an offensive term. Are we going to say you can't sell sauerkraut anymore? It's got to be fermented cabbage? Hey, let's get real and just let's get on with life and not look for offence where there's no need to take offence. There's nothing offensive in that colloquial term or common term for the grass tree, and to expect the residents of that street to go through inconvenience of having to notify all their insurers and banks and everything else for a change of address, I think is really quite unnecessary. So I won't be supporting the motion. I simply think we should let the matter rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. Councillor Dewhurst.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I've got a statement to say and also a foreshadowed motion. Which one would you like first?
The foreshadowed, yeah.
Foreshadowed? Okay, councillors, I have a foreshadowed motion here that council, based on the views expressed by the majority of residents of Black Boy Court, does not take any action in relation to the request to rename Black Boy Court Thornley. Do I read the reasons or leave it as that? Referring the matter to Landgate would likely deliver the same outcome if council was to support the renaming of the street. The outcome would be inconsistent with the wishes of the majority of residents of Black Boy Court and would result in significant inconvenience to those residents who have to update their contact details with many ranges of institutions such as banks, insurance companies, telecommunication providers and the like. That's foreshadowed motion. So, councillors, look, we're here to chat about the proposal to rename Black Boy Court to Grass Tree Court. I've got to say thanks to the suggestion from the young enterprising member of our community. Hats off to her. It's great to see such enthusiasm about community issues. But let's have a look what we have here. So we've got Black Boy Court is in the spotlight. The words black and boy in their own are pretty straightforward, right? It makes me wonder what's next. We start calling the colour black something else, and don't even get me started on the word boy. I've heard some schools aren't even allowing teachers to say good morning boys and girls anymore. I mean, what's this world coming to? And let's not forget, changing a street name isn't just a matter of swapping a sign. It's a whole rigmarole of folks living in there, a real inconvenience of updating addresses for every service under the sun. Sure, we could change the street name, but is that really tackling the big issues that are actually that are underlying? It's a bit like putting a Band-Aid on a shark bite. We need to dive deeper and work on things that generally make a difference in our community. So while I give full credit to our young friend for sparking this conversation, thank you. Let's not lose sight of the bigger picture. Let's focus on real change and not just the names of the words. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just want to conclude, Madam Mayor. I want to circle back to the commendable effort of the young lady who brought this issue to our attention. Even though I stand on a different side of this debate, I'm strongly impressed by her courage and initiative. It's not easy to stand up and speak out, especially on matters that can divide or be controversial. Her willingness to step forward and highlight these issues is a testament to her character, Madam Mayor, and to the bright future she has as a community leader. While we may not see eye to eye on this particular matter, I'm confident that there are many other areas where we share common ground. It's crucial that we continue to have these conversations, challenging and enriching as they may be, because it's through such dialogue that we grow stronger as a community. So I congratulate on her for her voice being heard tonight. I ask her to keep raising these issues, keep challenging us, and know that her contributions are valued and appreciated. Together as a council and as a community, we work towards finding solutions that respect our shared values and history, while also looking forward to a more inclusive and considerable future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Is there any further debate on this item? Councillors, if you would like to cast your vote on the officer's recommendation. Oh, we've got to raise our hands, sorry. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. That officer's recommendation has been lost. Councillor Dewhurst, if you'd like to speak to your foreshadowed motion.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I, Councillor Dewhurst, propose the following. The council, based on views expressed by the majority of residents of Black Boy Court, does not take any action in relation to the request to rename Black Boy Court Thornley. The reason is referring the matter to the Landgate would likely deliver the same outcome as if council was to support renaming the street. This outcome would be inconsistent with the wishes of the majority of the residents of Black Boy Court and would result in significant inconvenience to those residents who would have to update their contact details with a range of institutions such as banks, insurance companies, telecommunication providers and the like. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are you seeking a seconder? Councillor Abetz will second. Did you want to speak to the item? Councillor Abetz? Any debate on this item? Councillor Williamson?
Thank you. I just first wanted to start by acknowledging Grace Kenny for her courage and initiative on this matter. I think she'll make a great leader, and I think standing up for minority groups is a great thing to do. I'm a mum myself, and I know my kids come up with lots of great ideas, and I think they can really come forward. I like to think they can come forward and voice their opinion without feeling pressured. But one of the other things that I like to teach my kids is resilience as well. So even though tonight it may not go the way that you expected, it doesn't mean it's a loss. What it means is we've considered the situation, considered it in context, and what the ongoing implications would be for the other residents that would have to change all of their personal documentation. We take that into consideration, but we also consider the word black boy in the context that it's been used on the street, and we look at the streets surrounding Black Boy Court, and when we look at there's a clear theme in street naming in that area. We've got Tea Tree Way, Baronia Court, Hickory Drive, and I think in context we all clearly know that this wasn't intended to be derogatory in any way, shape or form. So I think tonight, even though I won't be supporting the name change, I think it is a great step to stand up and speak for people that are in the minority. And I also think it's important to say, we as the City of Gosnells, we have a group called Young Changemakers, and they are running this sort of thing. They're looking for initiatives to make change better in our community. So I think perhaps that might be something for Grace to look into. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Is there any further debate? Councillor Good, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I echo Councillor Williamson's comments about the strength of character and the ability to stand up when you're a young lady halfway through your education and to get in front of an audience such as us and to express that view and to do a petition. That's always great. We may beg to differ, though, on whether it's always a minority. I always argue this. Argue on the issue, whether it's minority or majority. Sometimes the majority becomes the minority. For example, the Voice referendum at one stage was 65% in favour and it dropped down to 39. So sometimes it's the power of your argument. I challenge everybody going through education, look at the pros and cons, look at the argument on its merits, seek a wide range of views, and as you're going through your education, if you have to adapt, change or change your mind, fantastic, great, but just argue the case on its merits. But it is great to see. But I'm fully supportive of the foreshadowed motion that Councillor Dewhurst has put up, again for the same reasons. There's nothing offensive, it's nothing wrong. It would actually cause a lot of difficulty in trying to change it through these departments to get everything changed on your name for the name of the street. So I just want to leave it as it is and save everybody time. But congratulations on the young lady for having the initiative to have a go at something that she thought was right. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Any further debate on this item? Councillor Dewhurst, would you like to close? Councillor Aaron. Okay, for councillors to please cast your vote on the foreshadowed motion. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. Those that were here for the Black Boy Court item, you're welcome to leave or you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. That's up to you. Thank you. Moving on to item 13.3.1, the purchase of land at 23 lot 488 Brashbrooks Way, Huntingdale. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Good to move this, Councillor Islam to second this. Councillor Good, any debate on this item? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lyons. Sometimes one wonders whether one needs to speak or not speak. I would have thought this was quite self-explanatory, but I thought I'd get up. I'm very supportive of it. I think we need to buy this property. I think it represents a very good strategic value for the area and for good public open space. I'm very strongly in favour of it, and I congratulate the directors and the CEO for thinking ahead that this can be very, very good use of the land, and just it makes a big improvement. So I'm in favour of it strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Councillor Islam, did you have... No? That's okay. Yes?
No comment, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I thought it was actually a no-brainer to purchase this land to open up the park. However, Councillor Williamson challenged me with an email that she had some questions for the CEO, and quite frankly, I quite agreed with a lot of her argument. In that was the fact is that, you know, about this land, and so I want to support the officer's recommendation, and the reason is that I was here when we went up for sale to purchase the land next door, and it was always our intention, it was always our desire to actually grab that second bit of that second block to open up that park. After speaking with, I spoke with Councillor Williamson today. I went and door knocked on 4 houses, got 3 replies. And each of them, they have some concerns about the house, but the main concerns are actually in the park, because what it is that people are able to do whatever they want to at a view of nobody. So nobody can see what they're doing, actually behind the house, not in the house block, but behind the fence in the park area. People are parking stolen cars there. People are doing drugs there. They got one guy that comes out every morning and picks up syringes with his metal thing and his little clipper, picker-upper. The park is unsafe, and for a visual, for being looking at, what's that word I was after again, Madam Mayor, for that surveillance, passive surveillance area. There's no passive surveillance on that particular park area. Yeah. So it makes sense. Yes, the city has worked hard on this for the last 4 or 5 years with the Department of Communities to actually get it. I would hate to see the loss of a community housing house. We need as many as we can, but I believe that we'll be able to, through discussions, that at least another 2 could be built on Department of Community Lands houses. And you never know, Madam Mayor, they might turn around and put on a big block and decide to throw some money themselves and buy 6. Might encourage them to actually build some more houses. So I just see this as a win-win, not only for those people that are living around there who are living, and as three of them said to me today, living with daily crime in that park area there, and also for the people in our communities or in other communities who don't have housing at the moment. Maybe we can slot in there through the Gosnells initiative of having an additional house. If not, might encourage them to build more, like I said. So I support the recommendation as it is now. I think it's a fair price. I think if we pay for that now, if we pay for it in 5 years' time, the price will be a lot more. So I support the recommendation from the council.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Councillor Betts.
Thank you. I just would echo what Councillor Dewhurst has already said, but that area was part of my electorate when I was an MP, and it was a constant issue with people that park was a place for unsavoury activity because it only had that one narrow block, which was into the park, and then you had two back fences, which you could do stuff behind there where nobody could see what was done from any of the vantage points. And so by having procured the first house and now being in a position to procure the second house, I think it is really, for the well-being of that whole neighbourhood, a really positive thing to acquire that. In terms of, I know we've got a housing shortage, but the fact is that this house here, the deal with the Department of Communities is that we purchase it today or in very immediate future, we make the payment, but they can continue to rent that out for another 5 years. So if they do that, they can relinquish it earlier if they wish, but they have the money from the council, they can go and build some houses on, they've got oodles of land that's vacant, so it actually has the potential to actually increase social housing by the time this house would no longer be available. So I fully support the staff recommendation that we proceed with the purchase, and I'm certainly no real estate expert, but it sounds a reasonable price. It doesn't seem inflated, and it's, even if it was slightly inflated, I'd still say we should purchase it because it's an opportunity we shouldn't let pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. Any further debate? Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm actually going to speak in opposition of the staff recommendation. I've got to this point after reviewing the POS strategy, viewing the park itself, looking at the neighbourhood and actually sitting back and critically assessing what this park has to offer at the moment in its current state and looking at what our strategy and our overall goal is for POS in the city. So I acknowledge that the Bindoon Loop Reserve is in irregular shape, and the park, however, with that irregular shape, the park is still fully functioning in its current form, and it does have passive surveillance as a result of the prior acquisition of 21 Brushbox Way. I think previously there was a concern about passive surveillance, but that has been overcome by the initial purchase in 2021. When I visited the park on the weekend, the park was functioning as a great local park with families down there. It had modern play equipment, had softball, shade sails, drinking fountains, park benches and a large grassed area where kids were kicking the soccer ball around. It's then led me to ask myself, what would an additional 600 square metres do for the amenity of that area? And I've come to the conclusion they would do very little in actually improving the amenity of that park. It may slightly increase the passive surveillance. However, with planting, there's going to be hidey holes all around. The concept plan is to have plants and trees alongside the neighbouring properties, which will then go against the design out crime principles. And it does result in the neighbour at 25 Brushbox Way then sharing a boundary fence with a park, which they never purchased a house to be living next to a park. When I had a closer look at the POS strategy, it identified a deficiency in the public open space within 400 metres of homes in Huntingdale. However, by purchasing this additional lot, it doesn't do anything to address or alleviate this problem. The other concern that I have at the moment is with the housing crisis. I think taking a house out of the housing stock, whether it's today or in 5 years' time, is not a positive thing for our community. While this property may not be in the best state of repair and may not be respected by the current tenants, I think that is an issue that needs to be addressed by Department of Communities, and selling the property is not the solution. That's just going to move the problem to another area. Whilst there's reportedly problems with crime and drugs in the area, I don't know that 600 square metres is going to solve that problem either. While I'm very supportive of acquiring land, and I think that is the correct use of public open space, the cash in lieu for public open space, I believe Bindoon Loop doesn't represent value for money for the community as a whole. So I won't be supporting the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Is there any further debate? Councillor Ashwin, Councillor Dewhurst has a question.
Just a point of clarification. At number 25, Wayne has no issue living next to a park.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Councillor Ashwin, thank you.
Yes, in relation to 23 Brushbox Way in Huntingdale, I'm of the belief that Bindoon Loop Park in its current configuration is adequate for the area both in size and current facilities. The proposed purchase of the property in Brushwood Way doesn't make economic sense. Essentially, the city would be buying a parcel of land that would eventually end up as grass. With regards to security aspect of this particular park, there would still be a secluded area which could not be observed from the road and pathway in the northwest corner where a pathway leads into the park. Active surveillance of this area of the park would be more economically responsible outcome at a cost of around $30,000 with the surplus money from the $460,000 spent on other localities within the Huntingdale area such as Rosebud Park. We could in fact have an extra 23 barbecues placed in the parks throughout the city of Gosnells, including Bindoon Loop Park. My intention is to vote against the purchase of the property at Brushwood Loop. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashwin. Councillor Lloyd, thank you.
Okay. I am in support of the purchase of this property.
Oh, sorry.
I actually want to applaud the city for spending some money on property at the moment. I know that prior to this conversation I was speaking to Councillor Williamson outside, and I can understand the debate that she is saying very clearly about that there could be a better use of spending that money. But I do feel like we do need to be purchasing property now, and in speaking with everybody prior to the meeting tonight, seeing how long it took to even get to this point to purchase this property, and the fact that we can purchase it at today's price and not have to have the maintenance fees, etc., on it for the next 5 years. I think that from that perspective, it's a really strong purchase to be making. I fully support the arguments already by Councillor Dewhurst as well for the reasons for purchasing it. But I believe that we should be purchasing properties over upgrades at the moment as well, because we do need to keep the land parcels. So yeah, for those reasons is why I'm in support of it.
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. Is there any further debate on this item? Well then, councillors, if you please cast your vote on the officer's recommendation. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried.
17, so you've got the absolute majority.
Yes, thank you. 13.3.2. The proposed lease for a portion of Lot 65, Alloa Road, Maddington, to Telstra Corporation Limited. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Adams to move this, Councillor Williamson to second it. Any questions or debate on this item, councillors? No, if you please cast your vote. Thank you. Raise of hands. Thank you. That has been carried. Item 13.5.1, the financial activity statement for October 2023. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Dewhurst to move this, Councillor Betts to second it. Any questions on this item, councillors? No, if you please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. Item 13.5.2, the payment of accounts October 2023. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Good to move that. Councillor Adams to second that. Councillors, any questions? No, please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. Moving on to item 13.5.3, the 2022-23 carry forward budget variations. Any questions or debate on this item? Councillors, oh sorry, well, you're mover first, thank you. Councillor Williamson to move this, Councillor Islam to second this. Is there any questions or debate on this item? No? Councillors, please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. Moving on to 13.5.4, the budget variation for the reimbursement from the Southern River Precinct 3A North Outline Development Plan Reserve. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Williamson to move this, Councillor Betts to second. Any questions on this item, councillors? No? Please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. Item 13.5.5, the budget variation for the reimbursement of the Central Maddington Precinct 1 Outline Development Plan Reserve. Can I get a mover? Councillor Good to move. Seconder, please. Councillor Betts to second, thank you. Any questions, councillors? No? If you could please cast your vote, thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. There are no motions of which previous notice has been given. There is no urgent business, no confidential matters. I declare the meeting closed at 7:42. Thank you everyone for attending.